One night, one match, one shot at the Portland Sports Arena. Some have never looked back. Others, we never saw again. Welcome to One Match Wonders, where we shine the light on the forgotten names and surprising cameos from Don Owen's Portland Wrestling. I'm Frank Culbertson, your host, and today we've got 3 fascinating footnotes, each with a story worth remembering. On January 28, 1978, Jesse Ventura, yes, that Jesse Ventura, beat a wrestler named Gary Nelson at the Portland Sports Arena. That sounds simple, but here's the problem. No one really knows who Gary Nelson was. He never appeared again in Portland. The name doesn't match any regulars or journeymen from the era. But in Vancouver, just over the border, a young Gary Young was starting his career. And back then, it was common for rookies to be sent down to Portland for seasoning. Could Gary Nelson have been a misprint? A misidentification of Gary Young working under an early or temporary name? It's pure speculation, but it makes sense. Gary Young would go on to have solid runs in Texas and Memphis. He held the Texas heavyweight title twice and won the WCCW tag titles with Cactus Jack. Yes, Mick Foley. He also held the CWA tag titles and built a solid resume as a mid-card and tag specialist. But on this night in 1978, whether he was called Nelson or Young, someone took the loss to Jesse Ventura and never came back. Now let's go back to December 6, 1969. That night, a man named Danno McDonald beat Rick Ronaldo in his only Portland Sports Arena match. But don't be fooled by that single line in the record book. McDonald was an absolute fixture in Pacific Northwest wrestling. He started in 1946. That's right, just after World War II. And while the Portland Sports Arena didn't open until the late 60s, McDonald had worked for Don Owen for decades before that. McDonald once said of Owen, he would do things his way and wasn't swayed by know-it-all people. He was fair to the boys, and he was honest and generous to the wrestlers in need. That tells you everything you need to know about both men. McDonald held the Northwest tag titles with David Johns, as well as the Intermountain Junior and tag titles. He was a grinder, a territory regular who kept the business moving. He passed away in 2004, but that single win at the Portland Sports Arena was a late career highlight from a man who helped build the territory long before the TV lights. Now, here's one that might not have even happened. On May 31st, 1975, a wrestler named John Pavich reportedly lost to Bob Remus, who, yes, later became Sergeant Slaughter. But here's the twist. Pavich supposedly retired in 1964. That's an 11-year gap. He would have been 55 years old. So was this the John Pavich from the 1950s and 60s, or was it someone else using his name? We don't know for sure. Pavich wrestled under multiple names throughout his career. Jim Siski, Ferenczy Siski, and Sandor Korda. He was known for being tough, technical, and reliable. His career began in 1934. Yes, 1934. And he worked just about every major territory by the time he wrapped up in the Pacific Northwest in 1964. If the 1975 match was indeed him, it would have been a rare return at age 55 against a future WWE Hall of Famer. That's not a bad bookend for a long career, if it happened. Pavich passed away in 2011, leaving behind him more aliases than most spies, and one of the most curious entries in Portland wrestling history. Gary Nelson may have been Gary Young. Danno McDonald was a territory lifer with one final victory. And John Pavich, well, that might have been a ghost appearance, or the last gasp of a long-forgotten veteran. Hey, thanks for joining me on One Match Wonders. New episodes drop every Tuesday and Friday. Subscribe, share, like, and remember, whether fact, folklore, or something in between, every name tells a story. If you've enjoyed these stories from Portland Wrestling's Forgotten Names, there's one book you need to own. The Encyclopedia of Portland Wrestlers by wrestling historian Mike Rogers is the definitive guide to Don Owen's wrestling empire. Over 500 pages of names, match results, and history, covering every wrestler who ever stepped foot inside the Portland Sports Arena. From Roddy Piper to Rip Oliver, from the stars to the one-match wonders, it's all in here. Available now on Amazon. It's the Encyclopedia of Portland Wrestlers, because if they wrestled here, they're in here.